Okay, welcome to part 6. Oh wow, this is going to be maybe a 10-parter. Wow. Yeah, so with happiness, he says that what you picture and what you actually get might be extremely different. So once you have that in mind, you can sort of tailor your expectations and realize that you have to work on separate areas of your life individually, right? So, yeah. Um, he also says that if you repeat certain things, you won't get the best experience ever. So it's like a couple had the choice on a cruise ship either to have the same item every day or different items. Like they got to try all the items first. So one couple chose they wanted to have the same item, but they were disappointed by like the third or fourth day. And I think that's just, marginal utility and diminishing returns. But basically, he's saying like essentially what you want to do is you want to have variety. He's just saying that you want to have variety. So ideally, he's kind of saying just never try the same thing twice. Not really, but like if you have a favorite burger, instead of ordering it a second time, just try the chicken and you should be happier. But probably the biggest thing that he said is that I think a 20-year study has been done and they found that people are happier without children. And the reason he said is that for a lie to be popular or successful, it doesn't necessarily need to be true, it just needs to be a super replicator, right? So he says if you have two planets, planet A and planet B, and one planet humans have the genes for orgasms and the other one people don't, then if you came back in like 50 years, you'd find like, planet B, the one with orgasms, they're like, maybe they've doubled the population. Maybe, and planet A, you'd find they're probably going extinct, right? So he illustrated it in so many ways. Uh, but this can be seen in daily life. So for example, if you had a religion where you told people to kill themselves, that religion won't get very far because if they believe it, they'll be ending their lives, right? Because there's that joke that, everyone wants to go to heaven, no one wants to die. It's not that no one wants to die, it's just they're dead. So you're not going to hear about them. That's a morbid example. But it can also be seen as like the stereotype between introverts and extroverts, like saying that parties are fun and concerts are fun. It's not necessarily that parties are more fun than reading books. It's just if someone reads a book, they read it on their own. Whereas if someone goes to a concert, they go with many people. So the lie has a means of replicating itself, or rather, the opinion. It's whether it's a lie or not is debatable. So the thing with children is that it's not that having children makes you happier. It's that those who do have children believe they're happier, and so they tell their children to have children. The person who didn't have children doesn't have children to tell them not to have children. But the studies show that people were actually happier once their children left, and those people who didn't have children were also happier. So if you think it'll be worth it, that, oh, raising them is hard, but one day you'll be happy, it won't. Uh, you will be less happier, objectively speaking. You will be less happier than someone who does not have children. So does that mean you shouldn't have children? No, I think there's still some reasons for having children. One, continuation of the species, obviously. Two, there is social stigma. Well, definitely, like I'm from Kenya, so there's definitely a lot of social stigma towards not having children. So I think you probably would want to have children. I don't know how bad it is in like America, Australia, or Bosnia or Latvia, or is it Latvia or I think it's Latvia or Lithuania. I don't know how bad the stereotype is. I mean, I don't know how many Lithuanians are watching this video. But yeah, people obviously want to fit in. And obviously the third one, which I think hits closer to home, is sometimes people want to see if they would be a better parent than their parents, and they want to live vicariously through their children. They might feel as if they didn't necessarily get certain opportunities, and they want to see what their children would turn out like if they gave them such opportunities. So in short, I'm saying I think there are reasons to have children, but the awareness is basically saying that most people are not happy. So if you do go down that path, at least you tailor your expectations in the sense that you're like, it's going to be more challenging than staying single. And maybe if you're incapable of having kids, mm, try look on the bright side, maybe. I mean, even if you do end up adopting, at least you get to change someone's world. I have been friends with a couple of people, even been intimate with some people who I think were adopted, and yeah, they seem pretty happy that they were adopted. So don't hesitate to adopt. Yeah. Okay, so back to the list. 1 minute, multiple streams. The Teenage Liberation Handbook. That book got me into a lot of trouble, but it's basically a book that talks about unschooling. And what it basically says is about not limiting yourself to learning in school and learning outside of school. And basically, it kind of says there are a lot of benefits to learning outside of school. So, for example, one, you get to learn at your own pace. So, some subjects you might be ahead, and some subjects you might be behind. But in school, if you're ahead, too bad. If you're behind, too bad. You have to do what everyone else is doing. And school doesn't test how much you know, it tests how much they know, because you may know a lot of things outside of school. But for example, if those subjects are not taught within school or they're not within the syllabus, then it's not going to be reflected on your exams. So it's not really a genuine representation of how much you know, right? And school also crumbs you too full too fast. They just stuff as many theories down your throat as possible, as fast as they can, right? So you don't actually get to learn or understand the content very well. Flow is really disrupted in school. Like everything goes by the bell. So like you might be getting really into the subject or having a really intellectual discussion with you and the teacher, but oops, the bell rings, physics over, English time or math time, right? Flow gets disrupted. If you're learning on your own, it's not the case, right? And school kind of just gives you answers instead of teaching you how to ask questions. I think I mentioned that before, but in the real world, it's about asking questions and then finding answers, right? And in school, they're always like, oh, we're going off topic, right? But who are the people who invent things in the world? Like, school just teaches you to regurgitate things, like, oh, regurgitate this, regurgitate that. But it's supposed to be about original thought. Like, one of the things that I think is utter rubbish about university is they tell you to reference your work. And I'm like, why do I need to reference my work? Like, just mark it based on whether it's right or wrong. I shouldn't have to reference. That's literally genetic fallacy, basing something on where it's from or who it's from rather than what it is. That is literally a logical fallacy. Even the best universities are teaching logical fallacies. Look it up, look up genetic fallacy. It's also ad hominem. You're basing it, you're saying, oh, just because I'm a student and this person is a researcher makes my work invalid. You should mark the work on being invalid. Like if I've said something factually incorrect, that's fine. Like if I've said the moon is made of cheese and it's not, yeah, fine, mark me wrong for that. But don't mark me wrong because I haven't referenced anyone. That just teaches students not to think for themselves, right? Not to explore things on their own. And the people who change the world are those independent thinkers who have their own opinions. School should teach you to actually have your own opinion, to actually, you can learn from people, but at the same time, don't focus too much on copying them. Focus on being more original. So the book applies to anyone, whether you're in school, whether you're out of school. Best book. It's literally number one. If you're to only read two books on this list, I would say the Teenage Liberation Handbook and Convict Conditioning 1 and 2. I count them as one book because like 1 and 2, they're just on the same topic. But those are undoubtedly my two favorite books, and they will be till the day I die, until I don't know, until I read a book on how to invent a quantum computer and become the first trillionaire before Elon Musk. Next is The First and Last Freedom by Jedu Krishnamurti. Again, all these books I was very active reading when I was, before I was 20, right? That's when I was most active reading. So this is another book from when I was 16. Or was I 17? Yeah, 16. So this book was actually recommended to me by a friend who didn't read the book, but they liked philosophy. So they heard of this philosopher and they're like, oh, have you read this book? By the way, the thing is, I love philosophy, but I have almost never read any book on philosophy because I think that to be good at philosophy, you just need to understand the logical fallacies and then debate with people because it encourages more original thought than just regurgitating ideas. Because some people are like, oh, yeah, well, John Locke said, or I don't know, some weird Greek name, this person said this and this, but they don't have any original thought. It's like if you want to learn maths, you shouldn't memorize the timetable. You just need to memorize the formula. There's some people who they know what 17 times 17 or 13 times 13 is because they know the formula. I mean, because they memorized it and they think it makes them look smart. But there's some people who actually know the formula. So it'll take you a longer time to get to the answer, but you're able to work out the answer for anything and everything. And maybe I'll do another video on why I think philosophy and psychology are the two most important subjects in the world. But for now, this is one of the only books I've read on philosophy, which is weird because I adhere more to Western philosophy, but it was a book called The First and Last Freedom by Jedu Krishnamurti. So I read it a long time. I tried rereading it recently, and my opinions have changed on certain things, but I agree with a lot of the things he says. So, one, he says, this is not a lecture. I am not a teacher. We are exploring together. And one of the core principles in his book is he says that literally everything in the entire world that is man-made exists purely out of opinion, in the sense that it's literally just some people, right? Some people that like you and like me who decided this is how the world should be, right? That, people should go to school, people should get jobs, people should have one partner, right? It's literally one person or a couple of people who decided that. So he teaches you to respect yourself and to respect your own opinion. Like he really opens your eyes into thinking, wow, yes, literally the way the world is literally people like you and me who thought it up, and we are no different. So he tries to put you on that level, the people who changed the world, who led those paradigm shifts in terms of world thinking. He tries to put you on that level by saying they first started by thinking different, and they first started by realizing their opinion is equal to the opinions of the greats. So what I mean by that is, for example, normally people are monogamous, right? But some people are polyamorous, right? And in Islam, for example, you can have 1 to 4 wives, if I'm not wrong, correct? So literally, this idea of monogamy, it's literally just someone who's like, yeah, yeah, we should only be one, 2 people. But someone else is like, no, maybe I want 4 wives, right? Or maybe I want more partners. And it happened. They made it happen. So he really teaches you just how to respect your own opinion and not to doubt yourself that much and, be more original. And that one day your opinion might actually change the world. Or maybe it might not change the world, but it might change your world, right? So he inspires you to live differently and not to rate other people's opinion too highly, right? In the sense that you shouldn't feel inferior to anyone. You shouldn't be like, oh, I have this solution for government, but oh, I'm not a politician, I'm not a political advisor, so maybe my opinion doesn't really matter. It does. It does. At some point, everyone thought we should be ruled by kings, right? Kings and queens. Suddenly, guys are like, nope, we don't like that. We want a president, and it happened, right? So you see, for it to happen, that person, whoever it was, whether it was George Washington or whoever the first democracy was, they literally had to be, they literally had to stand up and say, you know what, I have an opinion, right? And I think my opinion is equal to those same people who thought that monarchies work, and I'm going to try push my opinion and get it out there in the world. So if you want a book, if you want a book that teaches you how to be an independent thinker, this is the book. This is the book that really started to open my mind. I guess maybe the only downside for some is it probably was the start of what led me to be more atheist. But I mean, like that's not really a bad thing. But if you're a paranoid Christian or Muslim or Hindu and you're afraid you might become atheist, probably don't read that book because, yeah, one of the things you'd question is religion. Because at that age, I was still Christian, but I was like, okay, so all these people, right? All these religions are literally just opinions. Like it's literally someone who said, God is like this and this happened, but what if it didn't? So, yeah, if you are atheist, well and good. You'll probably enjoy this book even more. Uh, I think I'll stop there because there's not enough time to talk about the next book.